We are back, and we want to bring in our panel now. Joining us at the table, Associated Press White House reporter Jonathan Lemire, who's been on pool duty and has been deep inside every beat of the last several days. We've also got politics editor for The Root and MSNBC contributor Jason Johnson, and former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs Rick Stengel, also an MSNBC analyst. Casey's still with us at the table. You've been on pool duty since when?
Since last Wednesday.
Okay, so you have been inside the room for all of these statements. Talk about, put what you've seen, the president, you've been in the room for all these avails, and then put Bob Corker's reaction to what he's seen in context.
Well, I think we're seeing it's the roller coaster effect. It started, I was in the pool last week in Bedminster, where the president couldn't get enough of the media. He had four...
Does everyone know what the pool is? So the whole press corps doesn't always fit into every room where the president is speaking. Right. So there's a reduced group, and so it's
there's like 13 of us, and the AP is a permanent part of that pool.
Right. But the point being, you have seen all of the statements.
We travel wherever he goes, correct. Right. So first he couldn't get enough of us, where he was talking about North Korea, where he fielded 50 questions over 2 days. At some point in these small rooms, literally going reporter to reporter, like saying, come on, ask me something else, ask me something else. And then we get to Saturday, when Charlottesville happens. And he came into the clubhouse of his golf club and delivered his statement about on many sides and walked out as we shouted questions to him. Do you renounce...
What did his staff do when he talked about many sides in a race?
In that one, well, there's some pretty dramatic staff reactions to his next statement at the Trump Tower. This one here was a very small group. This was what he came in to say. The staff sort of walked out quickly with him. He ignored shouted questions. We tried to get him to ask if this was terrorism or if he condemned white supremacists. Then we saw Monday at the White House, where he delivered the read from a teleprompter, delivered the far more formal statement, the more traditional statement you'd expect from an American president, condemning this, condemning by name neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, and so on. And then comes Tuesday in Trump Tower, where he comes down the lobby. He was told, he signed off on the plan from aides, not going to answer questions, just going to deliver a statement on infrastructure, and I'm going to leave. Instead, he sought questions and immediately reverted back, and then some, to his statement on Saturday, blaming members of the alt-left, as he put it, and suggesting that the far right, the Ku Klux Klan included, did not deserve entire blame. As this was happening, his staff, this is the sort of already famous photo of John Kelly with his arms crossed, staring at his shoes. You know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was like frantically trying to make eye contact with aides and the president. There was one young staffer whose mouth literally dropped as this was happening. This was not the plan. And they have seen now the president careen into yet another crisis. And that's what we're seeing from Senator Corker.
So let's put up some of the magazine covers. America's magazines weighing in with some of the most stunning covers I've seen since I've worked in politics. That's the New Yorker. I'm going to hand these off to the magazine editor at the table, Rick Stengel, The Economist, with a not too subtle image there, and Time magazine with the president making a startling, just startling images, Rick Stengel.
Yes, I guess Donald Trump has been good for art directors. That's probably the one group. They're very powerful covers, and when you think about it, magazines tend to be conservative. These are all very strong statements, and they kind of align with what Bob Corker was saying, which is that there's something really close to being unfit about this president in terms of both his ideology and temperament. Remember the famous line about FDR, he has a second-rate mind and a first-rate temperament. That's a good measurement for a president. This president has a third-rate temperament and a third-rate mind. That is dangerous. And you look at these covers, the Time magazine...
Does he have sound mind, though? Because when I hear that he lacks the stability and competence, I wonder if Corker is... And then he ties it to the peril and the grave danger we're in around the world. Do you think that Corker is worried about his mental fitness?
I suspect he is. And if I had any advice for any person, man or woman, who became president, is to tampen down yourself, to get over yourself, to make sure your temperament, you don't react quickly, and you don't personalize things.
That's all that he does.
That's all that he does. And he reacts in a childish, petulant way, which is the last thing you want a president of the United States to do.
I asked this question at the beginning of the week over the reverting back to the many sides argument. Will anyone resign? And I'll ask that question again. You work for a man who has brought these images back into American life. Are any of you going to resign? How do they work for him?
because either they privately agree with him or because they think they can still manage him enough to accomplish policy goals. Look, I've always viewed this. I don't care if Donald Trump is a racist, right? There's lots of racist people in this country. We've had tons of racist presidents. The problem is that he's a terrorist sympathizer. White nationalists aren't just racists. They believe in an ethno-national state. They believe that no one in America who is not a white Christian has a role in government, media, education, and they want everyone who's not white and Christian to go. For him to make a moral equivalency, those people are a danger to the existence of a pluralistic state. And the president of the United States has basically said, I'm going to play footsie with these people. So if you are still in this administration, you are in agreement with a president who coddles people who have terrorist tendencies. And that is dangerous, and it is anti-American.
Those are really strong words, and I would push back if I hadn't heard from the journalist from Vice who was embedded with them, who said she had heard via text messages from the white supremacists themselves that that they were heartened and that they felt a little bit of wind at their back by his comments. Casey Hunt, how long is it sustainable if you've now got Republicans speaking openly about real legitimate questions about the stability and competence of the leader of the free world and suggesting that he does not understand the character of this nation?
I think that character remark is extraordinarily strong and one that will reverberate. And one thing I will say, too, you have to remember, and I'm interested to see how this shifts over the course of the next 2 weeks. These senators, you have to remember, they're back in their home states. Sometimes they're more comfortable talking to their local reporters, or they're willing to say things because they still, they remember what the old media environment was like, where you could, I'm not saying that they promise one thing at home and say something different in Washington, but rather that, these comments are immediately in this national conversation that we are having, and that means the president is seeing them. And I think that, Bob Corker is somebody who has spent time with President Trump. He knows that this is the case with President Trump. And if he's making those comments in front of a television camera, I think that's a significant, I think it's meant to send a message because, none of these Republicans get in front of a camera and think that eventually their message is not going to reach the president of the United States. So my question is still, what do they do in the wake of this? There have been some calls to censure the president in Congress. There have been some calls to remove statues of Confederates in Statuary Hall and elsewhere in the Capitol complex. So far, not a lot of support there. But if you are Republicans, what do you do? I mean, and again, I think the bind for these staffers, right, is do you go, it's the same one as they had originally, which is, do you go into this administration, even if you're not sure about this president, for the good of the country? And now...
Can I answer that as someone who worked in a way? No.
Yeah, well...
Eli Stokel...
What should they do instead?
Well, I mean, they have to live with their own decision-making, and I'm sure they all have complicated and opaque calculations. But, if I could just put the magazine covers on. I mean, this is the era that the president has ushered in. Here they are. These are the times we're living in. This is America in 2017. Thank you, Donald Trump. Eli Stokel, you're the king of presidential tells. What are you going to be watching for on his Twitter feed today?
Well, I think we've already seen it. I think we saw the reaction to what happened. Yeah, we saw what happened in Barcelona. We saw how fast he reacted here when he believed that it was, radical Islamic terrorism rather than homegrown white nationalist terrorists. And it was much easier for him to respond, and also responding with what is literally fake news, this internet folklore about General Pershing, which is a sort of, story about him dipping bullets in pig's blood to kill Muslims back in the Philippines, something that Trump used to excite his own base back on the campaign trail. It was totally debunked as a very dubious story, and that's what he goes to just hours after a terror attack. That's what he's going to. This is a president who is making it clear that he wants to stoke the culture wars. You can file that tweet under the same umbrella of white identity politics as his reaction on Saturday and his sort of meltdown press conference on Tuesday. The real unvarnished Trump speaking from his own gut. He resents, based on my reporting, he is resentful of the people in the White House who told him that you got to go out Monday, you got to make another statement, you've got to condemn the KKK and Nazis by name, because he thinks it made him look weak. And he's less concerned with looking like a racist than he is with looking weak and with keeping that base intact and solid.
All right, everyone at our table is bursting. Eli's on fire. We are just hitting pause. No one's going anywhere. We pick it right back up after this break.